Your Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon, Minister of Research and Higher Education Iselin Nybø, Laureates Professor Sunstein and Associated Professor Jensenius, distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this year's award ceremony to celebrate the Nils Klim Prize and the Holberg Prize. Academic prizes and awards, like the Nils Klim and the Holberg Prize, contribute to the recognition of outstanding scholarly achievements. Obviously, today is above all a celebration of this year's prize winners, Professor Sunstein and Dr. Jensenius. But it is also an occasion to celebrate the academic disciplines of the arts and humanities, social sciences, law, and theology, and to highlight their importance and influence on and to society. The list of academic prizes and awards within the natural sciences, technology, medicine has grown over the years. Far few, I believe, have been established to acknowledge unique accomplishments within the arts, humanities, social sciences, law, and theology. And when the Norwegian Parliament established the Ludvig Holberg Memorial Fund in 2003, the goal was to elevate the status of these academic disciplines. Since then, it has been the privilege of our university to be associated with this highly recognized prize. This year's Holberg Prize winner is one of the most wide-ranging, original and influential scholars of our time. His work has not only redefined several academic fields, but application of his research has also had substantial impact on the development of public policy. In addition, he has mastered the art and emphasized the vital importance of communication with the public at large. Throughout his career, this year's Ludvig Holberg Prize winner has clearly shown how scholars can influence policy making for the benefit of societal development. The engagement of scholars is even more called for as the public debate becomes increasingly polarized. This year's winner of the Nils Klim Prize is also an outstanding young political scientist who have mainly worked or focused her work on electoral systems in India. Today, her research spans over several disciplines: development studies, gender studies, comparative legal institutions, as well as economic aspects. In addition to demonstrating high academic standards, her work may also inform policy making and thus affect substantial or have substantial societal impact. Her career makes her undoubtedly a role model for young scholars of today. This year's laureates demonstrate clearly how the arts, humanities, social sciences, law, and theology make us understand society, how we understand society better, and how research may influence on the societal development. In an area of highly complex societal questions, the contribution of these disciplines is, in my opinion, vital. It is also like that academics should seek to engage, I think, with and participate in various parts and activities of our society. If not, we might constrict our own potential and influence as scholars. Research-based knowledge can be a key component in making the better choice, both in everyday life, but also in matters of policy making. However, we must always remember to take heed and respect the differences in the roles that we possess. Therefore, we need excellent role models like today's laureates, and with these, I welcome you again to the award ceremony celebrating this year's laureates of the Nils Klim Prize and the Holberg Prize. Thank you for your attention.
Your Royal Highness, Minister, Laureates, Your Excellencies, guests and friends from Norway and abroad. The Holberg Prize was established by the Norwegian Parliament in 2003. The prize is administered by the University of Bergen on behalf of the Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research. The university has appointed a board for the Holberg Prize. Every year, 2 prizes are awarded within the academic fields of the arts and humanities, social science, law and theology, the main Holberg Prize and the Nils Klim Prize. The prizes are awarded by the board on behalf of the University of Bergen and on the recommendation of academic committees, which consist of outstanding scholars in the relevant academic fields. The prizes are intended to raise the status of the fields covered by the prizes and to increase society's awareness of the importance of research in these fields. The Nils Klim Prize is awarded annually to a young Nordic researcher in arts and humanities, social science, law, or theology. The laureate must be under 35 years of age on the final date for nominations. The prize is awarded to researchers who have made outstanding contributions either within one discipline or through interdisciplinary work. The independence and innovativeness of the researcher's work is particularly important. Another consideration is whether the scholarly contribution is especially outstanding or promising in light of the researcher's age, the nature of the research project, and the research traditions in the researcher's academic field. This year, we have increased the value of the prize from 300,000 to 500,000 Norwegian kroner, which today is equivalent to approximately 52,600 euros and 61,500 US dollars. On behalf of the University of Bergen and on the recommendation of the Nils Klim Academic Committee, the board of the Holberg Prize has decided that this year's Nils Klim Prize goes to Dr. Francesca Jensenius. Francesca Jensenius, born 1983, is a Norwegian scholar within the field of political science. Her major research areas are comparative politics, comparative political economy, and research methods, with a regional focus on South Asia and Latin America. Jensenius has a bachelor's degree from the University of Oslo and a master's degree from Duke University. In 2013, she completed her PhD at the University of California, Berkeley. Since then, she has been a senior research fellow at the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs in Oslo, and since April of this year, she is also an associate professor of political science at the University of Oslo. She has been a visiting researcher at Warwick University in the UK, University of Los Andes in Colombia, and University of California, Berkeley in the US. The Nils Klim Academic Committee points out that Francesca Jensenius fulfills all the criteria of the Nils Klim Prize to perfection. She is an outstanding political scientist whose main work originally focused on electoral systems in India. Today, her research spans several disciplines: development studies, gender studies, comparative legal institutions, and economic agency. She masters both qualitative and quantitative methods. Her publication record is impressive, including her 2017 book, Social Justice Through Inclusion, The Consequences of Electoral Quotas in India, and several peer-reviewed articles in high-profile journals. She has recently received prestigious grants for her work. The committee also wants to commend her for her willingness to share her data with others and for her many services to her profession. Jensenius has carried out very original studies integrating qualitative and quantitative political science methods in a sensitive exploration of what it means for the scheduled castes, formerly known as untouchables in India, to have reserved seats in legislative assemblies. She convincingly shows that the quota system is good for the perception of the caste, but it does not necessarily benefit the caste itself. The committee is impressed by the immense efforts put into establishing valid data, as well as the use of the conclusions to focus on much broader issues of higher social relevance in her most recent research. Francesca R. Jensenius has moved on from electoral systems to studying elite and gender themes in India, and she has broadened her horizon to focus on a comparative study of women's economic agency and legal regimes across continents. The committee concludes that Jensenius is an accomplished writer with an ability to handle complex theories as well as empirical data with the same clarity and elegance. Her career seems to be ideally suited as a role model for younger researchers. I ask the Minister of Research and Higher Education, Iselin Nybø, and Dr. Francesca R. Jensenius to join me on the podium where the Minister will present this year's Nils Klim Prize.
Thank you. Your Royal Highness, Honourable Minister, Holberg and Nils Klim committees, colleagues, family and friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honour for me to be here today to receive the 2018 Nils Klim Prize. There are many talented young scholars in the Nordic countries, and I feel incredibly happy and very humbled that my work is being recognized in this way. My family and I often joke when we see sports events with exhausted runners or skiers being asked how they feel after their race, that it would be nice if academics too had gotten this kind of attention. How do you feel getting this book contract? Because academic life is, to some extent, like top-level sports. It's hard training, lots of travel, frequent disappointments, and, as you can see, very exciting but pretty short moments of glory. Recognizing the efforts of academics, I think, is important, and that is exactly what this prize and the other prizes do. And that the fact that the prize focuses on the work of young scholars in particular, I think is wonderful and very inspiring. There are lots of people I would like to thank. Academic work is in some ways a lonely endeavor, but it's also very reliant on good teamwork. Throughout my academic career, I have benefited from having great mentors, collaborators, friends, and an incredibly supportive family. Some of you are here today, and to each and every one of you, I want you to know that I'm grateful for things you have done for me. Commenting on my applications and drafts, having an inspiring conversation about work, choosing to hire me, or forcing me to take a break in the sun to eat ice cream. Good research leadership is really important, and I particularly want to thank the leadership at NUPI, where I have spent the past 5 years for a supportive work environment. Many young scholars really struggle to combine mobile international careers with having a functioning private life. And the trust and flexibility that I have experienced at NUPI has made that possible for me. At NUPI, I have also learned a lot about how you can actively create an inclusive and good work environment by taking all the members of the community seriously and intervening whenever someone is being marginalized or excluded. So really, thank you for that. There are also many to whom I owe thanks who are not here. Great co-authors, colleagues I have done fieldwork with, research assistants who have really exceeded all expectations, and people who I have interviewed who have shared of their time and knowledge. I'm also indebted to several mentors who have always been available to give support and advice. And I really hope to be able to repay that by serving that role for others in return in my new job at the University of Oslo and elsewhere. I want to end with pointing out two things that I find particularly exciting about working in the social sciences today. Compared to just a few decades ago, we now have access to an enormous amount of survey data, election results, social media posts, and other information from across the world. And we have the technical tools to merge and analyze massive data sets. The result is that both the way we do research and the state of the art of our knowledge are rapidly changing. This makes it crucial to find effective ways of sharing our data and code and of making research easily accessible and replicable. The open science initiatives that are ongoing and are being discussed are therefore of great importance. And while the ongoing data revolution is a wonderful development, it is also important not to get blinded by it. Many important insights in the social sciences still come from understanding the various perspectives of individuals, from the particular rather than the general. For this reason, I'm really excited about the increasing focus on multi-method and interdisciplinary work, drawing insights from different types of data and different forms of analysis. For researchers, this means having to invest in mastering a broad set of methodological techniques and staying up to date in fast-moving fields. The reward is often robust and very insightful research. I'm happy to be part of these developments, and I'm convinced that we will see a lot of high-quality social science research being produced in the time ahead. And so, thank you so much for this recognition, and thank you so much for your attention.
Your Royal Highness, Minister, Laureates, Your Excellencies, guests and friends. The Holberg Prize is awarded annually to scholars who have made outstanding contributions to research in the arts and humanities, social science, law, or theology, either within one discipline or through interdisciplinary work. The prize winner must have had a decisive influence on international research. This year we have increased the value of the prize from 4.5 million to 6 million Norwegian kroner, which today is equivalent to approximately 631,500 euros or $737,200 US. On behalf of the University of Bergen and on the recommendation of the Holberg Academic Committee, the board of the Holberg Prize has decided that this year's Holberg Prize goes to Professor Cass Sunstein. Cass Sunstein, born 1954, is an American legal scholar and currently the Robert Walmsley University Professor at Harvard University, where he is the founder and director of the program on behavioral economics and public policy. In 1978, he received the Doctor of Jurisprudence degree from Harvard Law School. In 1980, he became affiliated with the University of Chicago, first as an assistant professor, from 1985 as a full professor of both law and political science, and from 1993 as the Carl N. Llewellyn Distinguished Service Professor of Jurisprudence. In 2008, he moved to Harvard Law School, where he became the director of the program on risk regulation. From 2009 to 2012, he was the head of the White House Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. Professor Sunstein is a corresponding fellow of the British Academy. The Holberg Prize Academic Committee points out that Cass Sunstein is one of the most wide-ranging, original, prolific, and influential scholars of our time. His work has redefined several academic fields, and the practical applications of his research have had far-reaching impact on public policy. His major books on American constitutional law after the Rights Revolution, 1990, and the Partial Constitution, 1993, have significantly shaped our understanding of the relationship between the modern regulatory state and constitutional law. These books provide a sophisticated set of tools to understand the ways in which constitutional ideals can be reworked and defended in face of the challenges posed by the rise of the administrative state. In several works on American law, he powerfully rescues a deliberative ideal of constitutionalism and defends it against the reductionism of law and economics and public choice theory. He finds innovative ways to bridge the gap between our deliberative ideals and the demands of efficiency. These concerns also lie behind Sunstein's outstanding contribution to administrative law. In a series of books, The Cost-Benefit State, 2002, Risk and Reason, 2002, and The Laws of Fear, 2004, Sunstein shows the ways in which cost-benefit analysis can discipline regulatory agencies. For Sunstein, cost-benefit analysis is not an arid exercise about efficiency. It is a means to ensure that state agencies take into account the effects of their regulations on all citizens. By deftly combining cost-benefit analysis with insights drawn from a number of disciplines, psychology, economics, and political science, Sunstein redefines the ways in which we think of harm and provides novel ways of remedying them. This influential body of work reshapes our thinking on some of the most pressing problems of our times, from climate change to health issues. Sunstein's work is animated by a profound sense of the ways in which human behavior poses a challenge for regulation. He deepens our understanding of these challenges by incorporating insights from the behavioral revolution and re-energizing the field of behavioral economics and law. While there have been many other contributors to this field, Sunstein's ability to bring together behavioral economics with a deep understanding of democracy, law, and the functioning of institutions has a far-reaching impact. Through 48 books and hundreds of scholarly articles, Sunstein has transformed our understanding of so many important topics. In addition to his contribution to the academic field, Sunstein has also mastered the art of communicating difficult and important ideas to the public. Through his many articles of opinion and commentary in the press, media, interviews, and public presentations, he has been a most influential, eloquent, and productive participant in public debate. Sunstein is one of those rare scholars who anticipate challenges of the future at every turn. He was one of the first scholars to think about the ways in which communities of discourse in a digital age might impact democracy. In so doing, he redefines our ideas of how the public sphere operates. In addition, he has made brilliant and decisive contributions to a number of questions: the ways in which biases might affect judges, same-sex marriage, affirmative action, the future of animal rights, and the new challenges of speech regulation. His work is interdisciplinary in every sense. It is rigorous yet accessible and marked by an extraordinary concern for human welfare. The academic committee concludes that his towering scholarship, his policy advocacy, his constant search for workable solutions, his refusal to give in to defeatism in the face of political and administrative complexity, and his commitment to an enlightened public discourse make him one of the great intellectuals of our time. I would like to ask His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon and Professor Cass Sunstein to join me on the podium where the Crown Prince will present this year's Holberg Prize.
Your Royal Highness Crown Haakon, Honorable Minister, Mayor, representatives of the Holberg Committee, many esteemed guests, new friends, and absent friends. The fact that I returned the prize to the podium there does not mean that I am returning the prize. I am more honored than I can say to receive the Holberg Prize. Of course, and I really want to put this in bold letters, the prize is shared with terrific co-authors, colleagues, teachers, students, friends, and family. It's an honor, not just an honor, also a joy to be able to pay tribute to them right now. I'm going to begin with a scene from a movie from 2005 called Walk the Line about the great American country singer Johnny Cash. I hope you know who he is. Good. In the scene, Johnny Cash is a young man trying to make a start in the music business. He's lucky enough to get an audition with the celebrated Sam Phillips, who was celebrated because he discovered Elvis Presley. Cash begins by singing a song about how devoted he is to God and how much peace he has within and how he wants to shout it about the peace within and how all this is real. Sam Phillips is not impressed. He cuts him off. He tells him, "I don't believe you." He adds, "We've already heard that song sung 100 times, exactly like that." Johnny Cash is confused and defensive and a little angry. He thinks it's unfair. He objects that Phillips didn't even let him finish. In the jargon of the music business, "Well," says Johnny Cash to Sam Phillips, "you didn't let us bring it home." Here is Phillips's response. "Bring it home? All right, let's bring it home. If you was hit by a truck and you was lying out there in that gutter dying and you had one time to sing one song, just one song that people would remember you by before your dirt, one song that would let God know how you really felt about your time here on earth, one song that would sum you up, you're telling me that the song you just sang, that's the song you'd sing? That same song we hear on the radio all day about your peace within and how it's real and how you're going to shout it? Or would you sing something different, something real, something you felt?" Cash pauses and answers, "I have a couple of songs I wrote when I was in the Air Force. You got anything against the Air Force?" Sam Phillips responds, "No." Johnny Cash shoots back, "Well, I do." He then sings a song about longing and rage. The song is about freedom and more. It's an expression of freedom. It's a rebel song. Cash projects a sense of confidence, along with wonder, I think, in his capacity to sing something real, something of his own, something that he actually felt. His career is launched. When I started teaching at the University of Chicago in the 1980s, there were 3 songs, and they were on the radio all day. The first song claimed that the political process is a war among self-interested groups who seek to obtain benefits or to impose burdens. In short, democracy is interest group struggle. Not much of a melody to that one. The second song claimed that the entire purpose of a constitutional order is to protect purely private rights, property rights, liberty rights against the government. This second song overlapped with the first. If the democratic process is just a war among interest groups, rights of property and liberty need a lot of help. According to the third song, human beings are rational, self-interested profit maximizers. Or at the very least, they make rational choices about how to achieve their ends. If people discriminate on the basis of sex, if they smoke cigarettes a lot, if they spend their money foolishly, if they end up poor or sick or miserable, well, they're rational, and that's what they chose to do. Who are we to object? I didn't love those songs. I didn't believe them. They felt lifeless, deadening, a form of posturing, like a man flexing his muscles to show people how strong he is. They also felt like an orthodoxy. Of course, the people who sang the songs were extremely impressive, precise, clear-headed, and brilliant. They won plenty of prizes, but I had something against my own Air Force. At times, and for me this is very rare, an idea comes to mind and I feel a tingle along the back of the neck. It's like a tickle, but it's a tingle. It's a physical feeling. The tingle has surprise in it, a kind of whoa, and something stronger than delight. We have an expression in English, maybe you have it in Norwegian also, a tiger by the tail. The tingle is like having a tiger by the tail. I can't always know, of course, whether the tingle signals an idea of any value or truth. But here's a confession for you. Sometimes you get to know. The first time I had that feeling, I think, was around 1983 when I was working on constitutional law. And this was mostly U.S. constitutional law, but it was global constitutional law. Investigating the tales of legal principles involving freedom of speech, religion, equality, dignity, liberty, there was a pattern. There was a single foundation for each and every one of them. Whenever burdens are to be imposed or benefits are to be given, it must be for some public regarding reason. Always. In other words, the government has to offer a justification for hurting or helping people. So much for democracy as interest group struggle. That idea, the requirement of a reasoned justification for helping or hurting people, seemed to me deeply democratic, to be connected with principles of equality and dignity and freedom too. It also seemed connected with the deepest foundations of the world's great constitutional orders. It lies at the heart of the idea of deliberative democracy, a system of government that combines accountability with an insistence on reason-giving. In deliberative democracies, what matters is not power, but what an earlier Holberg laureate, Jürgen Habermas, calls the forceless force of the better argument. No fake news there. My emphasis on deliberative democracy and the ban on purely interest group-driven results or power-driven results encountered a lot of resistance from my Chicago friends and colleagues. Most of them hated it. The discussions were generally not a lot of fun, but there it was, that tingle. In the late 1980s, I started to read early work in what is now called behavioral science. Amos Tversky, Daniel Kahneman, and Richard Thaler, social scientists all, had something to say about human beings. Contrary to one of the favorite songs at Chicago, human beings are less than fully rational. That's not the best news, but it's true. Here's some better news. We're not so self-interested. Sometimes we are kind, and we sacrifice our economic self-interest to show kindness and to punish unkindness. Often we misperceive risks. Sometimes we emphasize today and tomorrow, and not so much next year or next decade. For each of us, that can create problems. Here's a secret. A lot of findings in behavioral science are not only intriguing, but also at least a little bit funny. For example, the vast majority of people think that they're better, a lot better, than the average driver. And almost everyone on the planet thinks that their sense of humor is better than average. A recent finding of my own, just from a few weeks ago, people would pay almost nothing to be able to use Facebook. Many Facebook users would pay nothing to be able to use Facebook, but they would demand a lot of money to give up the right to use Facebook. That doesn't make any sense, but that's what the data shows. Behavioral science have something in common with novelists and poets. They describe human foibles with great specificity alongside warmth and affection. There are lots of tingles here. For decades, behavioral science had not a word to say about policy or law. But what if we try to improve these with an accurate sense of what humanity is really like? We can rethink, can't we? And we are rethinking a lot of our practices. We can make people safer and more free. We can dent, and maybe more than dent, poverty, sexism, racism, and climate change. We can start to combat violent extremism. Most powerfully of all, we can reduce suffering and save lives and have some fun in the process. My most recent tingle came just last year when I moved to Concord, Massachusetts, which is where the American Revolution began. More specifically, I moved to a house built in 1763 that helped start the Revolution. The house in which I am privileged to live held munitions on April 19th, 1775, which was the very day that British military forces came to Concord to remove those munitions from that house. That's when the fighting began. Constitutional law is my primary field, but I had never studied the American Revolution before. What I learned set me on fire, more or less. I learned that in the first decades of the 18th century, Americans lived in a traditional society in which people were seeing themselves as systematically lower than others and as lacking human dignity. One of the great American historians wrote that common people were made to recognize and feel their subordination. So those in lowly stations, not having a sense of dignity, developed what is called a down look and knew their place. And they seldom expressed any desire to change bases with their betters. In this account, we can't understand the distinctiveness of this world until we appreciate the extent to which ordinary people still accepted their own lowliness. That's an indignity which was deeply internalized. Over the next 20 years, the world was turned upside down. This was a revolution of self-understanding, much more than politics. It was the rise of a widespread sense of dignity that obliterated the pre-modern world. One writer wrote that the idea of servility was never so totally eradicated from so many minds in so short a time. One of the first historians of the era, who was captured by British soldiers and lived in captivity during the Revolution, marveled that all of a sudden citizens had sovereignty. Thomas Paine, the era's most animated and passionate theorist of dignity, wrote, "Our style and manner of thinking have undergone a revolution more extraordinary than the political revolution. We see with other eyes, we hear with other ears, we think with other thoughts than those we formerly used." Recall, if you would, the internalized feeling of indignity. We look back on our own prejudices as if they had been the prejudices of other people. We now see and know they were prejudices and nothing else. And relieved from their shackles, we enjoy a freedom of mind we had not felt before. The thinking behind the revolution placed a bright spotlight on the aspirations, the needs, the agency, and the dignity of ordinary people. Hierarchies were bound to disintegrate. That down look, immortalized in the simple assertion in the Declaration of Independence and reverberating or finding brothers and sisters all over the world, that human beings are created equal. That assertion, back then, paved the way for social movements of all kinds, including the movements for equal treatment on the basis of race and sex. Recall, if you would, Sam Phillips' words to the young Johnny Cash. If you was hit by a truck and you was lying out there in that gutter dying, and you had one time to sing one song, what would you sing? What would it be that would be something real, something you felt? Every one of us, everyone in this room, is mortal. All of us are fragile, but every one of us is also blessed with something, the opportunity to sing. In 2017, actually a few months before I felt the most recent tingle, the one you've just heard about, I was actually hit by a car going approximately 60 kilometers an hour while walking on the street at night in Concord. I was hit hard. I was found, truth, I was found lying out there in a gutter, unconscious. I was lucky. I wasn't dying or close to it. But it wasn't good, and it wasn't exactly fun. The song of human equality is something real. It's a privilege to sing it.